Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I have a super fun and this is a very easy beginner friendly tutorial for you guys today. I'm going to show you how to make this adorable little needle pouch. Now you can use this for knitting needles, crochet hooks, interchangeables. I've got my DPNs in here and it's got this nice little flap at the top to just kind of keep everything protected in there. 3 different rows of needles. And of course you can customize these inside pockets to fit pretty much anything that you want in here. Perfect for knitting needles, crochet hooks. You can even put circulars or interchangeables in this pack. Let's go ahead and get started on this fun tutorial. So for this project, you're gonna need, of course, some fun fabric. So you're gonna need some outside fabric, and I'm using a canvas material. If you're not using something a little heavier, you might wanna also add in some batting. So I would just make my batting the same size as this outside material. You'll also need a larger piece of lining, and then 2 pieces for your smaller pockets. And then I'm gonna add this fun tie on. This is optional, but I think it gives it something a little bit extra. And then of course you'll also need some of your sewing supplies, and I do have some various size knitting needles here as well to help me decide how big to make my pockets. I think that's it for this project. Let's go ahead and get started. So I've set everything aside. We're gonna work with our outside panel first, and if you would like to add batting or interfacing, this would be the step to do it. So you wanna put your interfacing or batting down on the table and then lay your outside panel right side up on top of that, and then you can spray baste it, or if it's like fusible, you can fuse it on per those instructions. And then we're gonna take our little tie here that we have, and I've just folded mine in half. So I've just taken it, it's a little bit over 1 yard long. I've just folded it in half, and then I'm going to count up 10 inches from one of my sides. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I'm going to go ahead and just place that right there, and I'm just going to use a little clip to keep it in place for the time being, and you can just let the loose ends kind of fall in the middle here. Just make sure when we're sewing around that you don't accidentally sew over those loose ends. Next we're going to take our lining, and this is my right side of my lining, so I'm going to place that right side down on top of our bag, and then I'm going to clip all those layers together. Next we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew all the way around the edge, but then on this edge opposite of my tie I'm going to leave an opening about 4 or 5 inches here so we can turn the whole thing right side out. But before we do that, I want to make one other fun addition, and this is totally optional. You can leave your corners rounded or square. I'm going to round mine because I think it's a little more fun. So up here on this end up here, just pick an end. It actually doesn't really matter which one. So I'm going to use a plate, and I'm just going to trace a curved edge here on my plate. Just find something that has a nice curve. You don't want it to go past 5 inches because we're going to be folding this over at 5 inches. So make sure that your curve starts somewhere up here. So anywhere in here is fine. Just don't let it go past the 5-inch mark here. Alright, so I've pinned around my sides. I've got my tie on this side. So I'm just going to take this over to my sewing machine now and sew using a 1/4 inch seam all the way around this bag, leaving an opening down here about 4 or 5 inches large on the side opposite of where our tie is, so we can turn our bag right side out. So we've sewn around our bag, and now I'm just going to take my rotary cutter here and just trim off this curve, and I'm going to get nice and close to that stitch line, but not so close that I'm cutting through my stitches. Next we can go ahead and turn our bag right side out, our case. And I do like using my hair marker to just poke out these corners. You can also use this curved side to run along the top curved edge of your bag as well. So I'm going to go ahead and take this whole thing over to the ironing board and just press it all nice and even. So here's what our pouch is looking like. I just went and pressed it really well, and then on this end that's opposite that we had our hole to turn it on, I just pressed in those edges approximately 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm just going to go ahead and throw a pin kind of up here just so that I remember that that's where that is. Obviously our tie is over here on the other side. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my hair marker and my ruler here. I'm going to place my ruler 4 inches away from this bottom edge, And then I'm just going to draw a line with my hair marker right along this edge. You can also use a friction erasable pen or whatever. And then I'm going to take that to my ironing board and just press that edge up so it is approximately 4 inches up from the bottom. And I'm actually going to pin it just for now. We're going to actually unpin this in just a second, but I just want to make sure I remember where my crease was at here. We're going to go ahead and set this whole thing over to the side, and then we're going to work on our pockets. So we've got 2 different size pockets here. We have a taller one and we have a shorter one. We're going to take both of those and fold them in half so that they still are 17 inches wide. So I'm going to do that with both of these panels here. Again, fold it in half so that it's still are 17 inches wide. And then sew down both sides using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to turn them right side out. So I'm just going to flip our pockets right side out. And again, I'll use my hair marker to press out these corners. And then I'm also going to take this over to my ironing board and just press these pockets so they're nice and flat. If you'd like, you can also run a top stitch about 1/8 of an inch in on this top folded edge. Sometimes it can kind of give your bag a little bit more finished look. But that's totally optional. So here are our 2 pockets, and I'm going to go ahead and take the larger one with the raw edge down and the folded edge up. I'm going to place the smaller pocket on top of that. I'm going to line up both of the raw edges so I've got my folded edges up here at the top. And then I'm going to place them inside my little clips here. So I can take my clips off for a second and open that up. And then I'm going to take my pockets and line them right against this crease with the raw edges down here. We don't really need to worry about those raw edges at this point. Next, we're going to fold this up on the bottom. So all those raw edges are now gone. And then at this point, you can kind of decide if you want this for knitting needles or for circular needles. If you're going to do circular needles, you'll want to have a little bit more space. So for knitting needles, I like to do stitches every 1 to 1.5 inches depending on the size of my knitting needles. Now if I've got a couple of these skinnier ones, obviously they aren't going to take up very much space. So 1 inch will be really good for those. 1.5 inches will be good if you have DPNs that are maybe a little bit thicker. If you've got circulars, you're going to want even more space. So I would just figure out exactly what you think you want to put in these pockets. You can do a mix of DPNs and a mix of circulars, and then just make marks where you want your pockets to be. So I think for circulars, I would probably do about marks every 1, 2, maybe 3.5 inches all the way across. For knitting needles, maybe 1.5 inches, but you can totally customize this. If you have crochet hooks, they can be a little bit chunkier. I'm gonna use these for my straight needles, so I'm probably gonna do a slot every 1.5 inches or so. And I'm just using a friction erasable pen to make my marks. And then I'm just gonna back stitch up here and down here, and I'll just sew a nice straight stitch to create myself 3 different pockets. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this over to my sewing machine now. I'm gonna sew all the way around the outside of my bag using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I'm gonna go through and sew up and down all of these vertical slats, and I am gonna back stitch at the stops and the starts, especially because this top one will have a little bit of pressure on it. Since these are in the middle of a stitch row, I think they'll be okay. And one last thing I'd like to just point out, this is going to be quite a bit of material as you're going around this, so just take your time and go slow. If you have one, I definitely recommend using a denim needle for this. Definitely sews through thicker fabric. I mean, it's meant to go through jeans, so it should be able to get through this cotton and canvas layer, no problem. And that is it, guys. You just need to fill it with some fun knitting needles. You can fold over your top, and I just like to finger press that. And then you can either fold this so it's kind of like a rectangle, or you can also, of course, just roll it up so you've got a nice roll. Either way is fine. think I'm gonna fold mine because I like the look a little bit better. And then I just take this strap, wrap it around a couple times, tuck it under, pull on it, and I've never had it come open, and it's just nice and easy to get in and out of. All right guys, that is it for our project today. I love this no fuss kind of way to clasp this package together. It's just super fun and easy and natural in my opinion. And I can just grab this, unleash it, and I'm ready to go. It also folds up really nice and compact, so it's perfect to take with you traveling. You can take all your needles with you, put it in your suitcase or your travel bag, and head out to knit night once, you know, we can leave our houses. All right guys, that is it for today's project. If you liked it, please make sure to thumbs up and subscribe. That way I know to keep making these fun tutorials for you. So thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. You can even do interchangeables in here, or what are they called? Also, if you're watching in the future and you're wondering, why doesn't that girl go get her roots done? COVID-19, look it up. Now we're gonna take this over to the next I'm gonna take this, God, I feel like you can't see this whole thing on here. I'm gonna use this guy. Nope. Oh, that was a plate. I'm gonna use a plate. Whoa, that was close. That was a little too close. I'll probably fix that. Okay. Clover Hera markers. Oop. How can I have a hole? Have to fix that. It's always the easy bags that are the hardest. And I dropped my pin. Seriously. Okay. And you can roll it up and really just fit it inside of any travel bag that you want if you're gonna go to knit night, which none of us can do right now.